Keith Tebow from FRC Media, thank you for joining us today as we continue our conversations with the candidates running on the November 3rd election ballot. You know, Fall River is unique in many ways in that we are served by two representatives in Congress. Two congressmen represent Fall River, and I'm pleased to be joined by one of those congressmen this morning. I'm joined by Congressman Bill Keating. Congressman, thank you for joining me. How are you today?
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for getting this public service information out. I appreciate it, Frank.
I want to talk about a lot of issues, but let me just start by asking you sort of like your elevator pitch. If you're meeting a constituent right now and you're asking for their vote on November 3rd, why should they reelect Bill Keating to a sixth term in office?
Well, I think the knowledge and experience that I'm able to garner in the legislative setting, not just in Congress, but before that, my background is Norfolk District Attorney, I think helps us great. So the sum of the experience I'm able to garner and go forward with really at a critical time for our country is helpful. And to me, what drives me is if I can do things to improve anyone's life individually through our constituent work we do, or in terms of some of the laws we make and some of the monies we appropriate, make people's lives better, make our communities better, at the same time, build a launching pad for the next generation as well. Those are the things that really move me.
So let me get into some of the issues. Obviously, the big issue on everyone's mind since March has been, of course, COVID and the pandemic and how it's impacted not only our district, but our country. How has the president, in your opinion, handled this? And how can maybe a Biden administration handle this better?
Well, I think with President Trump, all you have to do is listen to his own words and the tapes of Bob Woodward, where he was aware, long before any of us in Congress were aware, through his own intelligence provided him by our intelligence sources and our military, that indeed this was serious. He knew it was deadly. He knew it was airborne. He knew how easily it could be transmitted. And he held that information from members of Congress and from the American public as a whole. And he admitted to doing that. He said he was just trying to downplay the situation. He didn't want to discourage people. But looking at the whole, I think he was more concerned about whether or not the stock market would go up, his election polling would go up as a result, more so than he was about the infection rate going up or the people that have died, and the numbers of people died going up, 6 of whom I knew well.
Yeah. You know, as we record this, we're a little under 2 weeks before Election Day, just so we can give some context in terms of some of the topics we'll be discussing today. You know, obviously, Congress and the president signed a stimulus package way back in April. There's been talks for another round. As we speak again, there are still some discussions. Congressman, what should be put forth in terms of another stimulus to help people who may be laid off, as well as helping small businesses overcome the effects of the pandemic?
We've actually had 3 stimulus packages. First one, the Family First package, was geared at emergency aid to families, making sure there was money so that they get by in this economic emergency, and making sure that there's testing available, making sure there was some instant money to keep businesses afloat. And then we had what's been termed the CARES Act and one and CARES Act 2, where we started a great higher volume of money going forth. And we did it to deal with the economic impacts of this and small businesses, with a paycheck protection program was critical. And I realized as that was transpiring in CARES 1 that the money wasn't getting down to the small businesses in my district, wasn't getting down to the people particularly affected, like tourism businesses and Battleship Cove in Fall River and all the restaurants in our area, the tourism that occurs in Cape Cod and the islands in the South Shore. It wasn't getting there. And I led a group of congressmen that changed the distribution formula. So it got down to the local lenders more, the smaller businesses. It wasn't just going to the corporations that had the connections with banks. And it made sure, too, that it was targeted towards restaurants, which is the latest one we've passed and awaiting action on, targets restaurants and hospitality industries as a whole, and also making sure that it was more flexible. The way the first one came out, we have economies in our region that are more seasonally affected, and making sure that they could take advantage of it and wouldn't be prohibited or limited from taking advantage of it, because a lot of their the peak of the season occurs in the warmer weather months. So I've been working on that. Those packages are there. We're awaiting another one that'll deal with the same issues, learning the same lessons, I hope, but also, and this is important, and it's just not the dollar amount that's being argued, because with the president, he's gone from saying, well, we can't spend too much, to saying, I'm going to break off the talks until after the election, to saying, when the House compromised and lowered the amount, well, it wasn't enough. And that's where we are now. So we're trying to deal with a moving target with the president in terms of what he'll accept. What he accepts is important, because Mitch McConnell, that leads the Senate with the Republicans, has said that he'll put whatever the president agrees to on the floor. We've had our last proposal over in the Senate for almost 5 months, and he's refused to put it on the floor. So clearly he's taking his orders from the president. So it's important as we go through these negotiations that we do everything to come to an agreement, and we've been trying. The one thing that makes no sense at all is the fact that the economic problems, both individually and for businesses, are just intertwined with the healthcare issue. You can't do one without the other. If you're just dealing with the economic issues alone, you're dealing with the symptoms, and we'll just keep throwing money to the symptoms each time. Necessary money to keep people going. However, we won't be targeting what has to be done. The House plan calls for a national plan, which we're so deep into this now, and we don't have a national plan. It calls for a national plan of testing, contact tracing, national research, national distribution of protective equipment, particularly for frontliners, nurses, first responders. It deals with those issues. It deals with educational issues, giving support for schools so they can make better decisions whether they can safely open or not. So what you're hearing about now sort of gets capsulized in the news. Well, one plan is for 2.2 trillion, another's for 1.8. Can't they agree? It's the substance that's at issue. The money issues we can agree on.
Yeah. Is it also important, I have the opportunity to speak every week with Mayor Paul Coogan in Fall River about what's been happening in the city. And I know that, budgets on both the local level and the statewide level, the state of Massachusetts still working on finalizing its budget for FY21. Is it important to also get some money back to those government, local and state governments, to help them, because they've seen a lot of revenue loss throughout this pandemic as well?
Yeah. As you know, Frank, Fall River has just moved into the red category. So in terms of the infection rate. So, this is like so much of the Northeast right now. It's becoming, unfortunately, what so many experts predicted, a third wave of this disease. And eviction issues are also an issue in our region. So I would say, as it boils down to it, this probably one of the primary stumbling blocks with getting an agreement is the House plans that we've sent, we've done two different plans. One, the Heroes 1 Act, the other called Heroes 2, that also deals with our frontline workers, nurses, fire, police, first responders. Those bills both included monies for state and municipal government. The budgets of our cities, the budgets of our state that help fund our cities, they've been ravaged with revenue loss, which is understandable. I mean, the revenues aren't coming in. And they've passed a partial state budget with the leadership of Mike Rodriguez, who does a great job on Ways and Means. He will tell you that they're running out of money. And it's just inevitable. Now, and they can't even tax their way out of it, because by the time the revenues came from any taxes, it would be too late. They're going to have drastic cuts. Mayor Coogan's going to have drastic cuts to face. And those cuts are going to be necessary service, public works, fire, police, the real services we depend on every day. There's not enough money in cities across the country and in states across the country to deal with this issue. Mitch McConnell's response was let them go bankrupt. How is that going to help those necessary services? How's that going to help our economy? I think if you looked at my district, it's no different in this respect than probably any other district in the country. The primary employer is probably government services of one kind or another. You're putting all those people out of work doing necessary service work, things that we rely on every day for our safety, security, and our health. So this is critical, and the House has been demanding that action. The Senate Democrats have agreed with the House and said, House plan includes this. The Senate plan should too. So thank you for asking the question. It's one of the greatest differences right now. And you just can't take an ostrich approach and say, well, I'm going to ignore the problem, let them go bankrupt. That's not leadership. It's not good economic policy, and it's certainly not good healthcare policy. It's not a good public safety policy.
I want to shift now to healthcare policy. You just mentioned that in your part of your last answer there. The president, of course, has been looking to scrap the Affordable Care Act. The Supreme Court, which will probably have another member by the time Election Day comes around, will be taking this up soon after the election. How important is it for the country to move forward and maybe build upon the Affordable Care Act or make changes that may be amenable to both sides of the aisle?
Well, it's outrageous, frankly, with what's happened with the Supreme Court. Merrick Garland was nominated by President Obama maybe a year out from the election. Yet the Republicans in the Senate said, we are not even going to give him a hearing because the election will come, towards the end of the year, and there could be a new president. Lindsey Graham, who chairs the hearings, the judiciary hearings for the nominee, he said in a tape that you've probably seen, write this down, save the tape. If there's any primaries even that are starting, we should not move on this. When they moved on this, 10 states had already begun voting for the next president, already been voting for that. That hypocrisy is outrageous. However, they're going to be successful. There will be a new justice. It's likely, given her background and track record in the courts, that it will tip the balance from 5 to 4, saving the Affordable Care Act to taking it away and eliminating it. They've been trying ever since I've been in Congress to do away with the Affordable Care Act. And they said, we will have a better replacement. We're 10 years in, there's been no replacement, not even one that might be inferior. The president is telling people now, to this day, well, I'll have a better plan. He's had 4 years saying he'll have a better plan. I'll have a better plan, but you'll see it after the election. The one thing we do know, as the Affordable Care Act threatened, is this. Over 20 million people in the height of this pandemic, the worst crisis, non-military crisis our country's faced in a century. 20 million people are going to immediately lose their health care insurance. And you know what else we know? People with pre-existing conditions won't have guaranteed coverage. Your health care rights to coverage for pre-existing conditions will be gone. Your rights to, if you're a woman, not to be charged more for your insurance than a man because you're a woman, will be gone. Your health care rights for young people under 26 going on their parents' policy will be gone. And with all the talk, which is an issue we haven't put enough attention to in the midst of a spiking opioid epidemic in our country during this COVID-19 pandemic, the guarantee that that coverage is there will be taken away from us. So all those things will be gone. And the response from the president and the people that are supporting the efforts to do away with the Affordable Care Act is simply, well, we'll come up with a better plan.
Yeah, one that we haven't seen yet from the president. Let me just get back to the Supreme Court. Part of the argument from the Republicans in terms of bringing her nomination forward was that, they're in charge. Elections have consequences. We've heard that phrase for some time. If in fact Vice President Biden is elected president and the Senate flips from Republican to Democrat, are you in favor of packing the court, as they say, or doing things that would change the balance of federal courts in general?
Well, I think people are outraged. I'm outraged. And that has really hurt, not just in the substance of the Affordable Care Act or women's privacy rights, reproduction rights. So many things that are critical are at stake. But within that outrage, we have to realize that they indeed do have the votes. This is going to happen. But the confidence that's there, the Supreme Court as a whole has always had a political aspect since its inception. The numbers have changed. The talks about doing away with the court have come sometimes in our history. But this might be a great period for us to, just as the dust settles on this, and people have seen the potential for escalating the political side of this. I'd like to take that period, if we could, and have a very honest bipartisan discussion, bring in legal experts, constitutional experts, historians, bring in people that whose voices would have impact, and just discuss where we're going. Whether it's going to be keep the status quo, or whether it's going to be an action to expand it, and then another action to expand it further. I really think we should have a very sober, serious talk about how we're going to approach this in the future, and keep options open to have that discussion be broad, thoughtful, and move on. This isn't the time in the midst of an election to be making rash decisions, but it is a time, given what just happened and what's been happening, and particularly the outrage that's occurred in the last year, to address the issue and to really see if we can take more of the politics out of this.
Yeah. I want to shift now to the economy and jobs, specifically in your district. You have a very diverse district. Obviously, you've got two gateway cities of Fall River and New Bedford you represent. Then you've got the Cape and the islands, very different makeup in terms of urban versus rural and suburban areas. What kind of things do you propose, if reelected, to try to help build the case of jobs? Now, obviously, COVID is going to play a big role in that. But COVID aside, and if things were sort of back to normal, what ideas would you have to help build jobs in our region, as well as foster greater economic development?
Well, the COVID-19 crisis has exposed many of the weaknesses that we have as a country. And those fundamental weaknesses affect our economy and our ability to move forward and to compete worldwide and to create jobs, new jobs. And so when you look at this, you have to touch base on the healthcare idea. This change away from the Affordable Care Act and having coverage for people has devastating economic impact. You can work your way out. You could be a single mom working your way, as I've talked to people, becoming independent, going to school, having a career, training, learning, and have that wiped out with one illness. So you need that foundation in place. I mentioned people that have children. Another foundation piece is to have strong and safe and adequate child care, something else that this pandemic has shown the crisis nature of in our country. Those are the foundation pieces. Now, going with that is education, making sure education is accessible. It's not out of the financial means of people moving forward. And we're blessed in our area to have great community colleges. We have in our region UMass, Dartmouth that's there for public education. We have to make sure those are open as well for everyone, because businesses will come where there's a trained, educated workforce. That'll attract the business fundamentally. So those are the foundation pieces. Now, where we can build in our area in particular is dealing with some of the strengths in our area. You know, the cost of housing throughout my whole region until this spike that just has changed so much recently is more affordable. That's going to be strong. It'll be an asset for us moving forward to try and have, businesses located in our region. The other thing that we have a marine economy in place. I mentioned UMass Dartmouth. There's also SMAS, the school that's there that deals with science, marine, and technology. In my district, we have Mass Maritime Engineering. We have research institutes like Woods Hole. And of course, we have a coastline throughout our area. We have the potential to be a hub and to deal with this growing economy, which they're predicting in the next 10 years is going to grow twice the rate of the rest of our economies. So we can attract those people by having an educated, trained workforce. We're going to have offshore wind. It's going to be the largest offshore wind project in our country. That's going to create jobs, and it's going to bring in secondary jobs. Let's take advantage of the natural things we have in place, but we need the foundation to do it. And I think that we'll be able to do it. Coming out of this pandemic, we're going to have to move to the next stage, and that's going to be the recovery stage. And as we move, we hope we won't make the mistakes we did in 2008, 2009, and make sure it's a forward-looking recovery stimulus program. It's have to be the biggest in our country's history. Let's make sure we build our infrastructure, including broadband for everyone. We know the need for remote learning now. We know people will want to conduct business remotely. Let's make sure that we're doing it with environmental goals in mind. Make it a green growth economy, battery research, so that we can store solar. These are things that we're going to be competing with worldwide as a country. And if our region is in place to take advantage of that, we're going to be better served. So as we go through that next stage, should I be elected, of the massive infrastructure plan, the recovery plan, I'm going to take those strong assets we have in our region and try and make them stronger and propel us to take advantage of this great recovery plan that will be coming.
Another aspect of what's been happening in 2020, of course, since the killing of George Floyd, has been racial discord across our country. Black Lives Matter movement has re-intensified, and there's been talk, of course, of reform within our police departments. What are your thoughts on what direction we should go in terms of becoming more racially sensitive, but also meeting the needs of public safety within our cities and towns?
Black Lives Matter in terms of the criminal justice system, but we're learning too in this the pandemic that the same holds true in the healthcare system. Same holds true economically. We're finding that children that are minorities are 8 times more apt to end up in the hospital. So we have great systemic disparities that we have to deal with as a country. And that does include criminal justice, which I think I know a little bit about. My dad was a police officer in his career at one time, as well as veterans agent. My brother, a police officer. My niece and her husband, they're police officers right now in this district. My daughter works with police officers, and I was a district attorney and had my own assigned police force, as well as working with locals. So I think I know what I'm talking about. And you know, it's interesting to give some hope to people here. Not only did we pass a bill federally to bring forward that's just languished in the Senate, that I think there will be action on, hopefully after this election. But also, we can do things. And I'll tell you the kind of things I did when I was a district attorney. I started alternative to prosecution program. I started a drug court. I started the first city in the Commonwealth that had a mental health diversion, so that mental health issues aren't, people suffering from those things don't end up in the criminal justice system for a safety net. And we did training. The police I worked with hand in hand for civil rights training that we ran They were encouraged by it. They wanted it. You know, what disturbs me right now with some people that are involved in politics as candidates or some that are there, they're giving people false choices. They're giving people a false choice. You're on one side or the other. Well, the police officers in my family, the police officers I've worked with, the police officers that I work with now on issues, you know, they want the same things. They're risking their lives to defend civil rights. They're risking their lives to make people's freedom of speech available. And that's the vast majority of police officers. So we need unity now. We need people coming together. We don't need divide. And unfortunately, in politics, people, including the president, is stoking the flames of division and fear instead of doing what he should be doing, moving in the direction of progress and unity.
I want to touch on a couple of quick more items for the little time we have left. You know, currently you served on the Foreign Affairs and Armed Services committees in the House. You know, a lot of people during election time tend to focus on these domestic issues that we've been talking about, but foreign policy equally as important. How do you see yourself contributing to our foreign policy concerns if reelected?
Well, indeed, in the committee assignments, I'm chair of the committee that deals with global environmental issues, global energy issues, deals with the part of the world that's critical right now, Europe and Eurasia, including Russia. I'm on the Middle East subcommittee, and then I'm dealing with emerging threats on armed services and strategic forces. So they're important nationally. Our security is important. They're important to our economy. And unfortunately, this administration has caused divide even with our closest allies. You know, my dad fought in World War II. His brothers, one of his brothers was killed in action. My uncle, my grandmother was a Gold Star mother. We fought a battle that resulted in a coalition with ourselves and our allies that had brought the greatest security and prosperity, arguably, that this world has seen in one area through one alliance. That's been divided. And I've worked hard. I've been in contact just in these last 1 year plus period of time. I've been chair with over 300 world leaders there. That's a lot of time spent trying to create that bridge and fill that vacuum that this administration has created, because it will come back. It has to come back for our economy and standing up to China and our security. So here's the point too that people perhaps don't always realize. These issues and the contacts on those committees have helped us in our district. The contacts I made when the tariff war that the president started with our allies, illegally, I believe, the retaliation came that cranberries were going to be facing tariffs at a time when that industry is in terrible competitive advantage with oversupply and other competitors around the world. I was able, at my request, I even had the email sent back, at your request, we're taking the tariffs on cranberries out of our package, our retaliation. I was able to do that with the contacts that I built. The biggest grant in University of Massachusetts Dartmouth's history was with the naval research that I was instrumental in having occur, and it helped to have those contacts. Even dealing, we had a water crisis in the town of Mashpee on Cape Cod, where from the military base there, it was contaminating the wells of Mashpee, closing 2 of the 5 wells down completely, endangering the water supply. I interceded with the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force to open up millions of dollars of funds to protect that and to make sure those wells were operational for the town's water supply. So these are the contacts that you make. They're important in our lives in terms of our security and in terms of our economy, but they also come home to roost. They result in being able to deal with issues. The bridges on Cape Cod that are there. I accelerated through a meeting I had with the Assistant Secretary of the Army the designation that they had to be replaced with the Army Corps of Engineers. So these are all things that in the day-to-day contacts that I've been able to garner that have helped us back here in our community.
Right, right. Finally, final question before I let you go has to do with voting. Again, as we speak, early voting has started here in Massachusetts. People are allowed this year to get mail ballots due to the pandemic. How important is it to continue to provide easier opportunities for people to take part in voting?
Well, I worked my way through undergrad school and my MBA, as well as part of my law degree. I was in the post office working my way through. And it just saddens me greatly to see the Postal Service being used as a political tool, slowing down mail delivery, which they are doing, to try and affect people's ability to vote by mail. And as someone involved in how our nation is perceived to the world in my committees, to have the president say this election is rigged before it even starts, we're looked at in the world as the Democratic leader, and he's doing just what Putin wants to have done, and others undercut the fairness and freeness of our elections, the core of our process. So, of course, we should be doing everything. We shouldn't see, as we're seeing now with early voting around this country, people, including senior citizens, waiting in line for 11 hours to vote already before election days come. This is America. Those scenes are unacceptable. So we should encourage all means of voting, including voting by mail, early voting, to allow people to do this. And the idea that it's not safe isn't true. Other states have been doing it. And if you don't believe me, believe Donald Trump's director of the FBI, who has said that there's no reason to be concerned with any kind of fraud with mail-in voting, that it's a successful way to vote. So I encourage people that might be listening to this, have a voting plan. That just means, don't wait till the last minute if you can. Have a plan. There'll be a local drop box in Fall River. You can drop it by there. There'll be the opportunity to vote by mail, but don't wait till the end and believe the Postal Service. Where I'm already noticing with prescription drugs and other issues, they're slower than they were already. So don't leave that up to a strained Postal Service as well. And if you can, some people just love, and I usually do too. I think my voting plan is going to be different this year. I'm going to vote early, but for those that really relish the chance to get out and vote election day, please get out and please vote. And this is important. Every year people like myself that run for office say, this is the most important election in history. I think if you go back to the last 10 elections, they'll all say that.
Right.
But saying historians, government historians are saying this is the most consequential election perhaps in our history. This time it is. So please get out and vote, and vote all the way down the ballot. The votes you cast for the state legislature, when we're trying to recover from some of the damage that's done with the coronavirus, as well as the mismanagement of this administration, as we pick up the pieces, we're going to need state partners as well. It's great to have the chairman of Ways and Means in our district, Mike Rodriguez. It's great to have all the, it's a great group of legislators I work with, and we work seamlessly. So, be sure to vote for them, support them. They're doing a great job. And local officials, I talked to Mayor Coogan in the midst of this, and I said, is this what you bargained for? And he said he never bargained for what he's going through, but he's worked so hard night and day to get through this. So I just have great gratitude for those officials I mentioned and the work they're doing, the tough decisions that school committees are making, very difficult decisions that could be made better by more effective national leadership, contact tracing and testing. But, let's pull together. On a last thought, I remain optimistic. We're going to get through this. We're going to come out of this. We're going to learn lessons from this, and we're going to move forward.
Yep. All right, Congressman Bill Keating, running for a 6th term in the U.S. Congress from the 9th District. Thank you for joining me. Good luck on Election Day, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. And thank you for joining us today here in FRC Media. Have a great day, and please make a point to vote on November 3rd.